If I told you about a longboard with a top speed of 32 miles an hour, 105mm wheels, 20 miles of range, a swappable battery, 1,000 watts of power driven by 2 motors, and a remote with a built-in screen, would you believe me when I say that all of this is packed into a board that only costs $499 US? Well, if you wouldn't believe me, then you are bound to be surprised with today's video, in which I will be unboxing, testing out, and reviewing the Possway T3 electric longboard that has all of the above and more. Hello and welcome. If you have never been to this channel before, my name is Carson Miller, and I do want to say up front that Possway did send me this board for free, but they're by no means paying me to say anything in this video, and all opinions are my own, and they are seeing this video for the very first time alongside you guys. But with that said, let's get right into a quick unboxing so then we can get into talking about everything else and whether or not this board truly stands up to all the specs that it claims to have. Of course, inside the well-packaged box, you'll have the T3 longboard itself that weighs a hefty 20 pounds. Additionally, below the board is an accessories box which contains the remote that has an OLED screen on it, a Y-wrench with all the Allen keys you'd ever need to maintain your board, a T-wrench with all the sockets that you need to maintain your board, a micro USB charging cable, the board charger itself, as well as the instructions manual. The included charger outputs 42 volts at 2 amps and will charge the board from 0 to 100% in as little as 4 hours, or if that's too slow for you, optionally, Possway does sell a 5 amp version that is a fast charger, which will charge the board from 0 to 100 in only 90 minutes. All right, so future Carson here now. It's now been well over 4 weeks since that unboxing, and I've put over 70 miles on the board and certainly have some thoughts, but I'll save those until later in the video after talking just a little bit more about the board's design. The deck is 37 inches long and it includes a 8-ply Canadian maple as well as 1-ply bamboo surface. The surface is concave and cups your feet very nicely for a comfortable ride. I found the grip tape to be great at this price point as well, and I appreciate the fact that they have a printed front arrow on the very front, which is especially helpful for those beginning to ride and learning to ride for the first time. Now, don't get me wrong, the board is quite stiff, so after longer rides, your feet may tend to hurt, but the concavity of the board is very welcome compared to flat boards. When looking at the bottom, there are 2 enclosures, one for the battery and one for the ESC. On the ESC, there is a power button as well as 4 LEDs which indicate the battery status if you don't want to go and power on your remote just to view that power status. As I already mentioned before, the wheels are 105mm stock, which is wild considering if you went out to purchase a set of 105mm wheels today, you'd be paying somewhere between $85 and $150, and that doesn't even include the price of shipping and taxes and bearings that you'd have to buy with those as well. And with this being a hub motor system, that upgrade would possibly be even more costly and complicated. So the included 105mm wheels are great because they allow you to go and cruise smoothly around even on roads or surfaces that may not be as smooth as a freshly paved surface. Larger wheels also are much more forgiving on the rumble strips that you encounter when you are riding on sidewalks. So those who are coasting around cities will definitely enjoy that. Overall, I'm just very pleased with the wheels, and even though they don't directly compare to the softness of boosted 105s or cloud wheels, just the sheer size itself, as well as the treads, is greatly appreciated. Moving on from the wheels, when riding the board, Possway claims that it supports riders up to 330 pounds, which is quite a lot for the board. And for your reference, I personally weigh 160 pounds, and I found the board to be very responsive and quick for this price point. In my time of riding so far, I haven't actually gotten up to that 32 miles per hour claimed top speed, but that has more to do with my own comfort level of riding at those high of speeds rather than the board being incapable of achieving those. At my own personal top speed comfortability of around 25 miles per hour, I can certainly tell that the board still has quite a bit more leeway to go, which is very impressive, as I've never actually had a board capable of such high speeds, even with boards that cost literally 2 times as much as this or 3 times as much as it. Another aspect that I was super impressed in from the very start is how incredibly quiet this board is. It's so quiet, in fact, that you hear the road noise and the sound of the tires on the road more than you hear the motors themselves, which is something that I'm just not used to coming from 3 years of experience with belt-driven systems. Okay, I just had to get my first impressions here on camera. This board is so quiet, incredibly quiet. Like, you don't even hear the motors really at all when riding it, which is insane. This board is so quiet that you do have to be pretty careful when there are people around and you're just coasting, because you're less likely to be heard when coming up behind someone on a bike path. On the flip side though, this quietness is a positive as well. Because the board is so quiet, you don't have to worry about getting looks from bystanders as you coast or shred by people that don't even bat an eye at the fact that you're on a motorized board. Even though the motors are quiet, don't get me wrong, they are punchy. And with that, let's talk some torque. Although you won't get the same amount of torque that you get from a much higher priced board that is likely belt driven, for hub motors, this is by far the most torquey and fast board that I've ever ridden within this price range, even when considering that compared to a belt driven system for the same price. The board is fast enough to speed up and pass bikers when they're going too slow, and it's quick enough to decelerate you to a full stop from 20 miles per hour in a relatively short distance as well. For daily commuting, this board fits right in, and even if you want to shred every now and then, once you get up to speed, this guy is great. For those commuting though, the board has a built-in cruise control option that can be set at whatever speed you want, and you're not only limited to slower speeds like some other boards out there. Lastly, let's talk the battery life really quick, because Possway claims that the board is capable of getting 17 to 20 miles on a single charge. However, I haven't exactly gotten that yet. The longest trip that I was able to go on was on the lower end of that estimate at only around 14 miles total before the board just completely stopped moving. But that is still a lot considering most of my ride was at around 22 miles per hour. So it was definitely quite up there in speed. Something else that is good for that battery though is that the board does take advantage of regenerative braking, meaning that your battery will go and recharge itself every time you apply the brakes. On top of that, the board has an auto off and auto on functionality, so it'll start itself up when the board starts rolling, and after around 10 minutes or so of the board remaining stationary, the board will go and shut itself off. With all of this said, most of what I've said up to this point has been positive, so let me just cover a few negatives, starting with the unfortunate news that the board does not allow free riding. What I mean is that you do have to come to a complete near stop in order to change the direction of travel the board goes in with the press of a button, rather than just pulling back on the acceleration wheel in the opposite direction. Coming from something like a boosted board that allows for this free movement, this was definitely a weird change, but usually you don't need to move backwards in an instant, and new electric riders probably wouldn't even be bothered by this one. Another complaint that I have is that the remote doesn't show the actual battery percentage of the board, and instead it opts to show 4 different nondescript dashes for the battery level, which is very unhelpful. However, fortunately though, the remote does let you know through a vibration motor when the board is getting super low on battery, and it will let you know when the board is about to die. Speaking of remote stuff, the remote labeling is weird because the labeling for the reverse button has literally nothing to do with going in reverse. It should actually be renamed to mode because it doesn't do anything reverse. Lastly, the board is on the heavier side, so if you do plan to go and carry around the board down some stairs, or you're carrying it onto a bus a lot, that's probably fine, but for longer periods of time, you're gonna get very fatigued. Closing off, this board has honestly been a blast to ride, and I find myself actually grabbing it over all of my other boards when I'm just going out to casually ride because of all the reasons that I've aforementioned, such as the quiet motors, the fantastic braking capabilities, and the large wheels. Also, something that I noticed with this board is that more people have come up to me and told me that they liked my board, or just yelled out "nice board," or just had questions about it than I've gotten for any other electric longboard or skateboard that I've ever ridden. And I think that kind of partially comes down to the stealthiness of this board, which catches people off guard, as well as the aggressive look to it as well. Even with the negatives that I have just listed, all things considered, at this price point, this longboard is without a doubt an absolute steal, hands down, with all that it has to offer. And as a final word, if you're someone who's looking for a stealthy electric longboard that rides smoothly and are planning on using it more frequently for coasting around and commuting purposes more than daily shredding, while also not breaking the bank, then this is certainly the board that you should go with. And with that said, that is pretty much it for this video. If you'd like to pick up a T3 or any other Possway board yourself, or just simply learn more, make sure to use the link down in the description below when making your order, because you'll get $15 off your order while also supporting me at the same time. If you like this video, make sure to let me know by giving the video a thumbs up down below, as well as subscribing for more videos like this from me in the future. Also, let me know what you thought about this board down in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. And on that note, I will see you in the next video. Peace.